In nature, everyone needs to eat, and most of us eat meat. But how often do we think about the fact that we are meat? David Quammen talks about this human awareness of being meat in his Monster of God. This fear of being eaten has shaped our evolution and has come to define so much of who we are. Though now we no longer face the immediate risk of being eaten, the fear remains instilled in us unlike much else. Fear is transgenerational. There is plenty of evidence to suggest that maternal stress has significant impact on offspring, both negative, affecting brain development and stress regulation in the fetus, and positive, stress caused by predator exposure can prepare the young for living in a high-risk environment through innate vigilance. Though statistically we no longer have a need to fear animal contact, with death by animal accounting for around just 0.15% of all causes of death globally, we still do. This fear of being eaten is difficult to shake. We have to thank this quite primal fear for human survival over the last 6 million years, through periods where we were not necessarily at the top of the food chain, but just another meal. In relatively more recent times, this fear has been taken advantage of and aggravated, notably by organized religion in the Middle Ages. This will happen to you if you don't behave. The Hellmouth was a prop often used in medieval theatre as an attempt to scare Christian audiences with a dramatization of the entrance to hell. This tapped into our ancestral fear of being eaten by something larger. The audience, nonetheless, ate it up. We are drawn to what we fear most, drawn to the danger. We revere it. Is this a coping mechanism, an attempt to control the uncontrollable? Vorophilia, derived from the Latin vorare, to swallow or devour, is a somewhat uncommon but fascinating human obsession with being eaten. It can be born of the desire to merge with a more powerful other, or permanently escape loneliness, a violent end to a forlorn emotional response. Few would go as far as to ascribe themselves with this label, but its symptoms certainly feature prominently in the cultural psyche. Cannibalistic figures like Jeffrey Dahmer and Ed Gein have inspired numerous films and cultural portrayals, illustrating this dark fascination while also giving rise to another concerning feature of the collective human imagination, our ability to glamorize and empathize with evil. Though to sympathize with this empathy is the glamorization of such evil and endeavor to celebrate its rarity. By sensationalizing cannibalism, is society collectively sighing in relief at how unlikely it is to become a victim of such violence? Fear of the dark is more often than not fear of being consumed. Consumption symbolizes utter helplessness. The ultimate monster, feared beyond anything else, doesn't stab you or shoot you or strangle you. He swallows you whole. These man-eating monsters have played a central antagonistic role in stories told across millennia. It is not so much the absence of light that scares us, but fear of what we can't see. Some unimaginable horror must exist within the darkness, purely because our eyes cannot determine that it doesn't, as they scan frantically every direction for some outline of the indeterminable beast. Often, the frightful dark mass of monster, projected into the darkest corners of the room, sits ready to grab you by a trailing leg or a dangling arm, dragging you away from the light and swallowing you into permanent black. We are first introduced to this fear as children, told stories by our parents of the boogeyman, a name that dates back to the 15th century, derived from the Middle English bug or bog, which means frightening spectre. The word has equivalents in many other languages, however, and these stories go back far beyond the Middle Ages. A cautionary monster that stalks our bedrooms at night and devours us if we do not behave. As adults, this fear of and obsession with consumption follows us. Take Homer's Odyssey. The Cyclops, Polyphemus, exemplifies this fear. Polyphemus doesn't just kill Odysseus's men, he devours them raw, swallows them whole, their screams echoing through his cave. The 20th century brought this fear to life in a more visceral way, on the big screen of Steven Spielberg's 1975 film Jaws and Ridley Scott's 1979 film Alien. Both films play on the fear of consumption, whether that is being torn apart by the jaws of a great white shark or being consumed from the inside out by a parasitic alien xenomorph. Then, perhaps the most iconic of all, zombies. First brought back into the world in Haitian folklore, the modern undead owe their depiction as groaning, flesh-eating ghouls almost entirely to one man, George A. Romero, and his 1968 classic Night of the Living Dead. Why are we so excited, so obsessed with the visual depiction of people being torn limb from limb and eaten alive, in usually excruciating and gory detail? These films and shows undoubtedly scar us the first times we see them, and it is only after years of monster subjugation that we become numb to the fear and begin to relish the more carnal excitement of watching someone be devoured. Roger Ebert noted after seeing Night of the Living Dead, the movie had stopped being delightfully scary about halfway through and had become unexpectedly terrifying. There was a little girl across the aisle from me, maybe 9 years old, who was sitting very still in her seat and crying. For some, though, it is not just a nightmarish rumination turned bloodlust spectacle. It is reality. The case of Michael Rockefeller, believed to have been killed and eaten by an indigenous tribe in New Guinea, is a more sobering reminder of the reality of cannibalism. Though his fate remains ambiguous, after the boat he was in reportedly overturned 3 miles offshore, members of the Asmat village tribe he had spent time with have admitted that he had been killed and eaten. His most personal remains then divided amongst the villagers: glasses, shorts, ribs, head. It is also possible that he was eaten by a crocodile or a shark. While no less gruesome, this would perhaps be a less violating fate. Cannibalism is the worst thing of all, worse than any other behavior, the ultimate violation, being reduced to nothing more than another meal for another man. In life, we fight to stay whole. The fear of being eaten is more than just the biological remnant of a time when we were prey. It reflects a deeper existential reality, the inevitability of our consumption, of our death. You will be consumed, whether by human, animal, insect, bacteria, or mold. We are food for worms. In the end, the fear of being eaten is a microcosm of the human condition, a reflection of our awareness that we are temporary, vulnerable, and destined to be subsumed by forces larger than ourselves. The monster may terrify us in its violent act of devouring, but the worm, patient and slow in its consumption, reminds us that we cannot escape our fate. We will be consumed. We just pray it is at the hands of the worm and not the monster.